Burnout, a phenomenon which is increasing in our society. Let me start my presentation with a little story. A colleague of mine works at Skyguide, the air traffic control in Kloten airport, and told me the following about an authentic radio communication between the pilot and the flight safety. Tower, do you have problems? Pilot, I have lost my compass. Tower, it seems to me from the way you are flying, you have lost all your instruments. The congruence between this story and the person who is in burnout is that the person in burnout has somehow also lost the orientation, the inner compass. He needs a new adjustment of his life, a new guideline. I will talk about the following points: the symptoms of the burnout syndrome, the explanation of a burnout syndrome, the disbalance in energy, who has a particular risk, how can I recognize a burnout, the 8 phases of burnout, possible treatments by burnout, and if we have time, we can go in a discussion. The symptoms of the burnout syndrome. The burnout syndrome has 3 dimensions, mostly in combination. Sometimes one dimension is more clear to recognize. First, depersonalization. It's called the client-related burnout. The person is indifferent, cynical, distant to clients and or employees. It influences the interaction, the contact with others. Example item are, it's increasingly hard for me to get and to be in touch with customers or employees. Second, emotional exhaustion. It's called the personal burnout. The person is irritable, strained, has weak drive. It influences the individual mood and state. Example item are, I feel totally out of my job, have no fun and interest anymore. Third, experience of failure. It's called the task-related burnout. The person is ineffective, has hyperactivity, and feels a lack of meaning, and the result is senselessness. It influences the performance, the task. Example item are, I have always less the feeling that I really help others or do something essential. Explanation of the burnout syndrome, the disbalance in energy. A common model for the explanation of burnout, especially in companies and in management, is the concept of imbalance between demands and resources. The effort reward imbalance model, as you can see in the slide. Only the adequate resources in combination with the necessary skills help to cope with the demands and to stay in balance with the energy by doing a job. Based on this model, an appropriate measuring instrument has been developed, the IRE questionnaire for the detection of effort-reward imbalance. When you want to check yourself if you are in the energy balance, you can do this test. It's free of cost. I give you some times that you can write down the link. Okay, I hope you could done it. The imbalance between effort and reward, according to the ERI, is often accompanied by excessive commitment, by overcommitment, when the individual sacrifices himself literally. This is reflected in statements such as, when I wake up, I think of the problems that await me during the day, in addition to sleep disorders and insomnia. You can see on this slide the stress study, which was done by SECO in Switzerland 2010. And you see that 31% are suffering by this energy balance. It means they don't have this energy balance anymore. I like this energy-based model more than the work-life balance concept because burnout is not a quantitative, but a qualitative problem. Not the amount of hours you work determines if you have the risk to get a burnout. The quality of work you are doing is crucial. You can see it on this slide. 25% are in the critical area, 46% percent are in the sensitive area, and only 28% are in the green area. If you have a good quality of work and do something meaningful using your talents and getting satisfaction, you can work more than 8 or 9 hours daily. If the energy you invest in your work is in balance with the return on investment by getting back satisfaction, gratification, not only by money, and high reward, you never will burn out because you are not running out of energy. You are in the energy balance, as I explained before. I will explain you my concept of positive and negative stress with the difference between being in the stretch or stress zone. If you do a job and do it for a certain time, you can fulfill it completely. It's going to be routine. You know already at 8 in the morning what will happen till 5 in the afternoon. Some people like that and prefer not to change anything to stay in the comfort zone. But some, like me, for example, search for a new challenge. Before I started my own coaching business, I changed 11 times my job and function. I was working in the private sector and in the public sector. I was building up and leading organization in the social pedagogical field and in the education field. I started as a mechanic and now I work as life mechanic. If you search for a new challenge, you have to find out how high the level should be that you can close the gap between the experience you already have and the new knowledge you have to adapt, to learn, to do the new job. If this gap is in the right difference, you will be in the stretch zone. You know you can do it and you are able to learn and cope with the new requirements. Being in the stretch zone leads to growth and personal development. You enlarge your knowledge and skills. But if this gap is too big and you feel overwhelmed, you fall in the stress zone with the risk to develop a burnout if this happens often. Stretch zone means enlargement, like the rubber band in fitness club, and stress zone means to excessive demands. If you understand this, you know all about stress management. The individual ability to handle stress in the job depends on personal resilience. The following personal aspects reduce personal silence and can promote a burnout. Neuroticism. Characteristics such as anxiety, lack of self-respect, tendency to irritation, worry and depression, tendency to be compulsive, unstable self-esteem, striving for perfection. The person often sets high goals for himself and has a problem to compromise. It has a lasting impact on his action planning and assessment. Helper syndrome, an attempt to compensate failed donation and failed attention in childhood through unconditional social activity. The helper gives the attention to others that he wants to receive himself. People with the helper syndrome try to stabilize their unstable self-esteem through making sacrifices in the form of great tasks and soaking up the gratefulness of recipients who get the help. High ambition. People whose self-esteem is only based on their job performance often show a pathological addiction to success. This is mostly influenced by parental education, namely, if high regard and acceptance, the feeling of love was directly dependent on success and performance in school during in childhood. This is also a typical pattern by workaholics. Special personal shortcomings. Poor education provokes failure, and the inability to set other limits can also promote a burnout. A starting point for the prevention and treatment of this syndrome derived from this model is the restoration of equilibrium. Specific competences such as self-regulation, self-management, or implementation skills are necessary. Who has a particular risk? People with a so-called A-type behavior have an increased risk of a burnout or cardiovascular disease, such as a heart attack. A-type individuals tend to behave competitively, lead a success-oriented lifestyle, and work under time pressure, especially people who have a very committed approach with high emotional involvement in their task have an increased risk to develop a burnout. In addition to the individual disposition, the company culture where not the personal and emotional commitment is accepted, but only the result. The outcome may support burnout. This context can lead to high frustration and disappointment. What leads to a burnout? A lack of relaxation and too much negative stress, as I explained before with the stress zoom. We have more and more information and at the same time less and less time to process it. Today, constant readiness is expected to communicate via email, SMS, smartphone, or using other digital tools. One is constantly online, also with Zoom meetings nowadays. We do not have the time to think in peace or always in a functional state. Sleep problems increase with sleeping difficulties, and deep sleep phases can't be reached anymore. Deep sleep is necessary for relaxation so that the body can produce immune cells that protect the organism against diseases and viral infections, which is extremely necessary now in the context of this pandemic. Lack of movement and an unbalanced nutrition prevent the self-cleaning process of the body. It is disrupted by burnout. Are there professional groups which are particularly vulnerable? Previously, the burnout, called also the fatigue syndrome, was a phenomenon in the helping professions, such as teachers, social workers, nurses, and doctors. Today, it affects nearly all professions and industries. The trick is not too much work, but often the large discrepancy between the goals, whether they are prescribed or self-set, and the individually available resources to achieve these goals. The disbalance of energy, as I mentioned before. Someone who doesn't achieve any goals in his job, but is dependent on circumstances that he can't influence, fails into a crisis of meaning, can't find fulfillment because the energy balance is no longer correct. The energy balance is critical. This means that much energy is put into the work and no or too little energy is coming back. When the energy is in balance, then the amount of work plays a minor role. Burnout develops normally in the context of work and has, in contrast to depression, no genetic component. Are there warning signs? The development of burnout is a gradual process with the following typical warning signs. Concentration problems. It is harder to think and to provide normal services. In communication, misunderstandings accumulate. Sleep disorders. Long lying awake before falling asleep or frequent sleep interruption is prevent nocturnal rest. Disturbance and memory ability. For a moment you can feel faint or blackout. Besides memory loss, small lapses in thinking happen. Emotional instability. The feelings are hard to control. They vary between crying and sudden fits of rage. Tension, pain. Physical complaints pile up. Palpitations, high blood pressure, and muscle tension in the back and neck. Failures. The available time is no longer enough. Achievements are possibly only with extreme efforts. Mistakes happen more often. Thoughts running in a circle. It's difficult to make decisions. The head feels empty. Routine is still possible, but no productive thinking. Regeneration is no longer possible. In the final phase, in the manifest burnout, every activity is exhausting. Sleep is greatly disturbed. Besides, sweating, tinnitus, hearing loss can happen, and nausea also can occur. Okay, this is my short presentation about burnout. Thanks for your attention. If you want to get more detailed information, also to know what you can do to avoid burnout, you can read it, get information on my website, Burnout Prevention Net. There is also some information in English, not only in German, and much better if you buy my ebook, which you can download on by Amazon. This ebook is completed in English. I hope you get information you were looking for, and you have an idea what is burnout and how you can recognize it. I wish you all the best. Hopefully not to get in a burnout. Keep on going strong and stay healthy. Thank you for your attention.